Every museum has a floor the public never sees. Down a service elevator past the climate-controlled vaults, there is a room where the staff stop making jokes. Inside are objects that have been blamed for fires, for ruin, for death. Artifacts so feared by the people who own them that they have been pulled off the floor plan, locked behind unmarked doors, and quietly forgotten on purpose. Counting down the 10 most cursed objects museums keep locked in the basement. And tonight, you are getting in. Number 10. The Crying Boy. In September 1985, a British newspaper ran a story that spread across the country like, fittingly, wildfire. Firefighters were reporting that house after house had burned to the ground, and in the charred wreckage of each one, a single object kept surviving completely untouched. A cheap, mass-produced print of a weeping little boy. One fire officer claimed he had personally never seen an intact Crying Boy print burn. Thousands of terrified owners mailed their copies to the newspaper, which staged a mass bonfire to destroy them. Several institutions quietly accepted donated copies for their archives, and just as quietly declined to ever hang them. They keep him in a drawer, face down. Number 9. The Conjure Chest. On display, when it is on display at all, it looks like an ordinary 19th century walnut chest of drawers. According to the legend that travels with it, the chest was built on a Kentucky plantation, and an enslaved carpenter who made it was beaten to death during its construction. His mother is said to have placed a curse on the wood. In the decades that followed, the family that owned it recorded one death after another. Relatives who used the chest or even touched what was stored inside it. By the time the chest was finally donated to a Kentucky history museum, the tally attributed to it had reached as high as 17. The curators kept it. They just made very sure to fold a protective charm in beside it first. Number 8. Black Aggie. For decades, a black bronze figure of a shrouded, grieving woman sat over a grave in a Baltimore cemetery, and a chilling reputation grew up around her. They said that at the stroke of midnight, her blank metal eyes glowed red. They said the spirits of the dead gathered around her after dark. They said that if you met her gaze directly, you would go blind. Pregnant women who walked past her, the story went, would lose their child. The grass at her feet refused to grow. The grave became such a magnet for vandals and terrified thrill-seekers that the family finally surrendered the statue to the government. Today, Black Aggie does not sit in any public gallery. She is tucked in a courtyard behind a federal building, deliberately out of the way where the curious are not meant to find her. Number 7. The Bassano Vase. The legend begins in 15th century Italy, with a silver wedding vase given to a young bride the night before her marriage. She was found dead the next morning, clutching it, whispering that the vase would have its revenge. The vase was hidden away for centuries. Then, the story goes, it resurfaced in 1988 at an auction. The buyer was dead within months. So was the next owner. And the next, when someone finally found a faded note tucked inside. "Beware, this vase brings death." The object was hurled out a window. Police are said to have returned it. After that, no museum would put it on a shelf. It went straight into a sealed lead case, buried in a vault, with explicit instructions never to bring it back up. Number 6. The Hands Resist Him. In the year 2000, an ordinary online auction listing turned into one of the internet's first viral horror stories. A couple was trying to sell a painting, a pale, dead-eyed boy standing beside an unsettling doll-like girl, with dozens of small disembodied hands pressing against the glass door behind them. The sellers swore the figures moved at night. They claimed the children left the frame and wandered the house. They posted that anyone who viewed the listing in person reported sudden illness, fainting, and a wave of dread. The listing was flooded with reports of viewers feeling sick just looking at the photographs. When the painting finally sold and changed hands, the new owners did not display it. It lives in storage now, in the dark, where the children, if they walk, walk alone. Number 5. Annabelle. To the public, she is the porcelain horror of the movies. The real object is far more mundane to look at, and to the people who keep her, far more frightening. She is a worn fabric Raggedy Ann doll, and according to the famous paranormal investigators who took possession of her, she was never a doll at all. They claimed the doll moved on its own, left handwritten notes, and attacked the living. They said a young man who mocked her died in a motorcycle crash on the way home. So they did not destroy her, and they did not display her openly. They sealed her inside a custom glass case in a locked occult museum, blessed twice, with a sign that reads, "Positively do not open." When the case was reported damaged, it made international news within hours. People do not check on furniture this way. They check on prisoners. Number 4. The Cursed Chair. In a quiet English museum hangs an old oak tavern chair, not on the floor where a chair belongs, but high up on the wall, bolted near the ceiling, where no living person can ever sit in it again. That, the curators insist, is the entire point. The legend says it once belonged to a condemned man hanged for murder in the early 18th century who cursed the chair from the gallows. Anyone who sat in it would die. The stories that followed are grim: airmen, hitchhikers, a deliveryman, all said to have rested in the chair and died soon after, in crashes and accidents. The local landlord eventually begged the museum to take it. The museum agreed on one condition: it would never ever touch the ground again. So they hung it on the wall, out of reach, where no curious visitor can tempt the curse by sitting down. Number 3. The Treasures of Tutankhamun. In 1922, the archaeologist Howard Carter broke the seal on the tomb of the Boy King, untouched for over 3,000 years, and pulled out the richest hoard of artifacts the ancient world ever surrendered. Within months, the man who funded the dig was dead. Lord Carnarvon died from an infected mosquito bite. At the precise moment of his death, the story goes, the lights of Cairo failed, and back home in England, his dog dropped dead. Newspapers seized on a supposed inscription at the tomb's threshold: "Death shall come on swift wings to whoever disturbs the king." In the years that followed, a string of people connected to the excavation died, and the world called it the curse of the pharaohs. To this day, certain objects lifted from royal Egyptian tombs are kept off public rotation entirely, studied behind closed doors, in sealed cases by curators who say they are not superstitious. They just prefer the lid stays on. Number 2. The Hope Diamond. It is a 45-carat deep blue stone of impossible beauty, and it carries one of the longest casualty lists ever pinned to a single object. The legend claims it was pried from the eye of a Hindu idol. Cursed by the temple it was stolen from to destroy every soul who ever possessed it. The roll call of its owners reads like an obituary: a French king beheaded in revolution, a queen sent to the guillotine, a wealthy heiress, the diamond's last private owner, who buried a son, watched a daughter die, lost her husband to an asylum, and died in debt. By the time it reached its final owner, it was so notorious that he donated it to a national museum. And the legend says he mailed the most cursed gem on earth through the regular post. The museum displays it now behind blast-grade glass. But for decades, the quiet question among the staff has been the same. Are they protecting the diamond from the world, or the world from the diamond? And the number one cursed object museums keep locked away: the unlucky mummy. In the late 19th century, a beautifully painted coffin lid bearing the face of an ancient Egyptian priestess arrived at a great British museum. It is not even a full mummy, just the lid. And yet no single artifact on Earth has had more catastrophe blamed on it. The story is that every man involved in bringing it out of Egypt met disaster: shootings, lost fortunes, sudden deaths. Inside the museum, night guards reported the painted face-changing expression, hammering sounds from inside the case, and staff struck down by misfortune. Photographers who tried to capture her, the legend says, saw a living, malevolent face bloom on the developed plate. The museum was so unnerved it allegedly tried to sell her, then to give her away, and could not get rid of her. And here's the detail that made her immortal. The story spread that the museum finally shipped the cursed lid to a buyer in America in April of 1912, aboard the maiden voyage of a ship called the Titanic. When the ship went down, survivors are said to have whispered that they knew exactly what had doomed them. Historians will tell you the lid never left the building, that it sits in that museum to this very day. But the museum has rarely chosen to make a spectacle of her. She is kept in a quiet corner away from the headline galleries, the most blamed object in the history of the curse. A coffin lid the world decided sank the most famous ship that ever sailed. You wanted in. Now you have seen what they keep in the dark. 10 objects, sealed cases, locked drawers, courtyards no map will show you. Maybe every curse is just a coincidence wearing a costume. Or maybe the people whose job it is to study these things, who do not believe in any of it, keep folding charms beside the wood and bolting chairs to the ceiling. For a reason they will never say out loud. If you would walk into that basement with me, subscribe. Because next time, the door we open does not lock from the inside.